Good morning, members of the Ad Hoc Committee for Integrity and Support staff, and a special welcome to our guests, the St. Maarten Youth Parliament. Welcome to this committee meeting number 2 of today, Friday, June 24, 2022. We've established a quorum of 5 members. Please stand for a moment of silence. Thank you. I've received notice of absence from the following committee members: MP Akeem Arundel, MP Siddharth Bijlani, and MP William Mallon. Are there any other notifications from the floor? Thank you. The agenda point for this committee meeting is presentation of updated draft code of conduct by the St. Maarten Youth Parliament, IS 993-2021-2022, dated June 7, 2022. Myself, MP Gums, requested this meeting. Before we go over to the agenda point, on June 7th, 2022, Parliament received a meeting request from MP Melissa Gums informing the Parliament that the Youth Parliament would be in Parliament for a different committee meeting and that it would be good to schedule an ad hoc committee integrity meeting on the same day to discuss the updated draft code of conduct. I'd just like to briefly explain for the public how we came to this meeting today. In Zittingjaar 2021-2022, there was a Central Committee meeting of Parliament to discuss the draft code of conduct, specifically the request of the Ad Hoc Committee for Integrity to provide the draft code of conduct to the Integrity Chamber for their insight and feedback, particularly regarding possible sanctions for violations of the code. After expressing some concern with providing the draft code to the Integrity Chamber, it was requested by a majority of members of Parliament that the code be returned to the Integrity Committee for further work. Specifically, it was requested that the code be modeled along existing parliamentary codes of conduct from St. Kitts and Nevis, Trinidad and Tobago, Anguilla, etc., to give it more cultural relevance to St. Maarten. It is interesting to note that these countries have their codes of conduct and ethics for public figures, which includes parliament, ministers, and other public officials, embedded in various laws and acts, and not just in codes. As chairwoman of the Integrity Committee, I found it prudent to consult with the St. Maarten Youth Parliament. As in previous meetings, I believe Youth Parliament can act as a barometer for the Parliament, as they are the potential future parliamentarians and ministers of this country. Their insight into how they want to see their public officials behave and act should be of utmost importance to us as we continue to frame what should be expected from individuals in public service in St. Maarten. With that being said, I would like to thank the members of the St. Maarten Youth Parliament for their input and assistance with the draft code of conduct, and I yield the floor to the Youth Parliament President, Mr. Richardson. Mr. Richardson, you have the floor.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Good morning, Madam Chair, members of Parliament, support staff, my fellow YMPs, members of the media, guests in the Tribune, and those viewing online and listening via the internet. Before we start our presentation, I would like to thank the Ad Hoc Committee on Integrity for inviting the St. Maarten Youth Parliament to be a part of such an important project, drafting a code of conduct for the Parliament of St. Maarten. We were asked to aid in drafting and revising a code of conduct for the Parliament of St. Maarten by MP Melissa Gums. This code of conduct is meant to regulate and scrutinize the behavior of our MPs. It also entails measures to combat and sanction any breaches. While we are not here to berate or scold anybody for their actions in the past, we have drafted this code of conduct along with MP Melissa Gums and her team as a means to curb any misconduct within Parliament while taking past actions into account. Accountability and self-responsibility are critical to our success in personal, professional, and public life. However, we often look for those character traits in others rather than including them in ourselves. We as young people have been raised to understand that there is a time and place for everything, and that our actions have consequences. As adults, and even more so as government officials, you are meant to be role models and examples for the citizens of St. Maarten. We believe that all people, no matter their lineage, race, profession, or social standing, should be accountable for their actions. There's a saying that says, "What you do tells me everything about you." This code of conduct is meant to create a layer of transparency between Parliament and the general public. A body of men holding themselves accountable to nobody ought not to be trusted by anybody. Thomas Paine. Now, with that being said, Madam Chair, may I turn the floor over to YMPs Brianna Silvers, Jamie Lynch, and Prerna Ramchandani.
Thank you, Mr. Richardson, for your introduction. Ms. Silvers, you have the floor.
Good morning, Madam Chair, members of Parliament, support staff, my fellow YMPs, and media, guests in the Tribune, and those viewing online and listening on the radio. This is our presentation on the Code of Conduct, presented by the St. Maarten Youth Parliament. What is the Code of Conduct? This Code of Conduct seeks to establish the ethical principles and basic rules that must guide the conduct of members of the Parliament of St. Maarten, hereinafter referred to as members of Parliament or MPs in the execution of their functions. How it was put together. The ad hoc committee was established in 2014 with the task of establishing a code of conduct for the Parliament of St. Maarten. In Zitting Year 2020-2021, a draft was presented in that incorporated the principles and articles of the Parlatino Code of Conduct, for which the Parliament of St. Maarten was a member. After the initial presentation, the Code of Conduct was sent back for further deliberation and for expert feedback. In the second half of Zitting Year 2021-2022, the Code has been updated with the assistance provided by the St. Maarten Youth Parliament. The Youth Parliament and the chairperson of the Ad Hoc Committee for Integrity has utilized benchmarks and best practices provided by the Dutch Second Chambers, Gedragscode, and the publication recommended benchmarks for codes of conduct applying to the members of Parliament by the Commonwealth Parliamentary Association. Okay, move on. Okay. These are some definitions. Code of Conduct, a set of guidelines and rules that are based on the principles of integrity, ethics, and propriety that a member of Parliament must adhere to during his or her tenure in order to present the people's confidence in the integrity of the Parliament of St. Maarten. Conflict of interest. Conflict between the public duty and private interest of a member of Parliament in which private interest could improperly influence the performance of their official duties and responsibilities. Gift. A gift is an item or service given willingly to a member of Parliament without payment, including the cancellation or coverage of a liability, as well as the fulfillment of an agreement by which the member of Parliament is obviously favored. Ancillary Activity is a position that a member of Parliament holds, or an activity that a member of Parliament performs next to his membership on the grounds of employment or compensation, in relation to the operation of a business or trade, or to fill a management, control, or supervisory position within a local or foreign registered entity. Inducement. A motive prompted by the deliberate enticements or allurements of other or improper means as bribery to violate duty. And travel, journeys to the countries within the kingdom or abroad in the capacity of members of Parliament. Article 2, the Integrity Committee of Parliament. Upon adoption and implementation of this Code of Conduct, the Ad Hoc Committee for Integrity will be replaced by the Permanent Committee for Integrity. Article 3, Public Office of Members of Parliament and Duties. As public officers, members of Parliament have a responsibility towards the citizens on whose behalf they act and are entrusted to protect, uphold, and act in the common interest of all citizens. Parallel to this, members of Parliament have complementary obligation to their Parliament in that their own behavior should favorably reflect on the reputation of the institution of Parliament, and that at all times they should work to protect, promote, and strengthen the Parliament while carrying out their duties. These are the inexcusable duties of the member of Parliament: to respect, promote, and defend absolutely and inexcusably the principles of Parliament of St. Maarten and Constitution of St. Maarten. Respect, promote, and defend absolutely and inexcusably the purposes of the Parliament of St. Maarten as the highest legislative authority and co-legislator and overseer of the government. Defend the interests of the entire population of St. Maarten as established in Article 44 of the Constitution of St. Maarten. exercise their function with dignity and respect for the general will, proceeding in good faith and integrity. Examine all legislation, motions, proposals, and otherwise submitted for their consideration and vote, prioritizing the interests of the people of St. Maarten above their own. Respect the parliamentary investiture and legitimate decision of the Parliament of St. Maarten. Render account of their mandate to society, providing the necessary information for the population of St. Maarten. Refrain from taking steps outside their work as a member of Parliament in relation to the activities of Parliament in the exercise of its functions. Decline attention, invitations, and other elements that tend to interfere in the responsible and honest performance of their functions. Not claiming any preferential treatment when carrying out personal or family procedures before entities, public or private. Take responsibility for any document that they sign or seal in their capacity as a member of Parliament. Article 3, Principles. Recognizing that they, as public officers, exercise their duties with the public's trust, the following principles should guide a member of Parliament in his or her actions and decision-making. Selflessness. A member of Parliament should act solely in terms of the public's interest. Integrity. A member of Parliament should not place themselves under any financial or other obligation to seek outside individuals or organizations that might seek to influence them in the performance of their official duties, including acting or taking decisions in order to gain financial or other material physical benefits for themselves, friends, family members. In this spirit, they should resolve, disclose all interests and relationships outside of their parliamentary function. Objectivity. In carrying out public business, including making public appointments, awarding contracts, or recommending individuals for awards and benefits, a member of Parliament should make choices based on merit only. Accountability. A member of Parliament is accountable for their decisions and actions to the public and must submit themselves to whatever scrutiny is appropriate to their office. Openness. A member of Parliament should be as open as possible about all the decisions and actions that they take. Honesty. A member of Parliament has a duty to declare any private interest relating to their public duties and to take steps to resolve any conflicts arising in a way that protects public interest. Leadership. A member of Parliament should promote and support these principles by leadership and example. Respect. A member of Parliament will refrain from discriminating, harassment, slanderous and/or derogatory remarks towards members of Parliament, members of the Council of Ministers, and other guests of Parliament. Now I pass the floor over to YMP Jamie Lynch.
Madam Chairs, members of Parliament, support staff, members of the media, and my fellow YMPs, I bid you a good morning. And now I will enter into Article 4, Disclosure of External Interests. Each member shall disclose to the Parliament all relevant interests that a reasonable person might think could give rise to the perception of influencing behavior between the member's duties and responsibilities and his or her personal interests. For example, land and property assets, shareholding gifts, foreign travel, symbolic reward, honorary degrees, sources of income, remunerated employment, directorships, liabilities, hospitality, and affiliations. A member of Parliament during a parliamentary term and/or the ending of a member's term. A member shall not use for personal benefit confidential information, for example, non-public information gained as a public officer. The Secretary General of Parliament would publish an overview of the ancillary activities registered in accordance with paragraph 1 at the beginning of each parliamentary year in Parliament's annual report and website. Article 6. Registration of gifts. This registry will be for gifts received by individual members of Parliament. Gifts given to Parliament in its entirety are exempt from declamation. Further elucidation is provided in the explanatory notes. Each member of parliament must register gifts above the amount of $500 within a month of receipt at the office of the Secretary General of Parliament, using the requisite form located on the P drive. A gift can be assumed to be intended for a member of parliament if the giver states that the gift is for a member of parliament, or the identity of the giver, the nature of the occasion, or value of the gift is such that it is reasonable to assume that the gift was intended for a member of parliament. In the absence of express intent, it will not be assumed that a gift was intended for a member of parliament, but for parliament if the value is above the following amount, $500 when given by an official government entity, or $500 when given by a private person or non-government body on any occasion when the member of parliament is present in their capacity as a member of parliament. The form in attachment 1 will be used for the registration of gifts. The Secretary General of Parliament publishes an overview of the gifts registered in accordance with paragraph 1 at the end of each parliamentary year in Parliament's annual report and website. Continuation of Article 6. Conflicts with the public office and exceptions. The following actions are considered to be in conflict with the ethics expected of members of Parliament in the execution of their duties as public officers, holding the trust of the public. It is expected that the members of Parliament should not abuse exemptions, immunities, and privilege assured to members of Parliament while on St. Maarten or while representing the Parliament of St. Maarten in their official travels. Should not grant gifts, benefits, promises, or other advantages to any official company, economic group, authority, natural or unnatural person, etc., excluding gifts of a lesser amount that are made for reasons of friendship or protocol. Should not receive gifts, benefits, promises, or other advantages from any official company, economic group, authority, natural or unnatural persons, excluding gifts of a lesser amount. Should not hinder in any way or by any means the development of normal activity of the Parliament of St. Maarten and or the government of St. Maarten. Should not intentionally omit relevant information or under the same conditions provide false information related to the execution of their duties as public officers. Should not disrupt the order of the sessions of the Parliament of St. Maarten. Should not practice acts that violate the rules of good conduct of Parliament or of government employees. Should not disrespect by acts or words another parliamentarian or authority of Parliament of St. Maarten as outlined in Article 3.8. The exceptions. The following exceptions from prohibited behavior established in Article 6, points 2 and 3, protocol acknowledgments received from governments, international organizations, or nonprofit entities in the conditions in which the official custom admits those benefits. Travel and subsistence expenses received from governments, educational institutions, entities for profit, and international organizations for the delivery of conferences, courses, or academic or cultural activities or participation in them. Gifts or benefits that, due to their meager value, depend on the circumstances, could not reasonably be considered as a means to affect the right will of the Member of Parliament. Article 7. Inducements or incentives. Inducements relate to the incentives offered to a Member of Parliament that may alter his or her stance on the matters of public concern. Further elucidation is provided in the explanatory notes. Thus, Members of Parliament shall not accept any form of inducement that could give rise to a conflict of interest or influence behavior, engage in paid lobbying, paid parliamentary advice, or paid advocacy, use his or her position to secure future employment, paid lobbying, consultancy work, or other remuneration or benefit upon ceasing to be a Member of Parliament. Members of Parliament must always represent the interests of all members of the public on an equitable basis and not on the basis of personal or political affiliations or inducements or incentives received or implied. I will now pass the floor to YMP Ramchandani.
Good morning. Oh, you can hear me. Okay. Good morning. Oh my God. Good morning, Madam Chair, members of Parliament, support staff, and my fellow YMPs. Good morning to all of you. So today I'll be presenting Article 8, the disclosure of travel. So members of Parliament are governed by the guidelines for travel for members of Parliament in the 2015, and as such, the Secretary General of Parliament publishes an overview of all travel of members of Parliament on Parliament's website and in the annual report of Parliament. And members of Parliament will submit a report of travel related to their function as a member of Parliament, with the exception of travel for the national holidays of other countries within the Kingdom of the Netherlands. Article 9, deletion of information. In the event, the gift registry, overview of ancillary activities, and an overview of travel will be held for the duration of an individual's tenure in Parliament. And in the event that an individual is re-elected to his or her seat in Parliament, these data sets are maintained with no interruption. Within 3 months of the end of an individual's tenure as a member of Parliament has ended, the data is securely deleted from the registers of Parliament. Whether the loss of seat is due to an election, death, resignation, or suspension. Article 10, enforcements and sanctions. The Code of Conduct will be strengthened and supported by the enforcements of its articles and by the placement of sanctions on violators. Enforcement on the Code of Conduct will be guaranteed by the Permanent Committee for Integrity. This committee will receive complaints and or concerns of breaches of the Code of Conduct. Anyone is able to file a complaint and or concern with the conduct of a member of Parliament. Once the complaint or concern has been received and noted by the Permanent Committee, it will be sent to the Handling Committee, which will exist as an external committee, yet still apart from the Permanent Committee. The Handling Committee will consist of 1 representative from the Ombudsman of St. Maarten and 2 representatives of the Integrity Chamber of St. Maarten. The function of the Handling Committee is further outlined in Appendix A, Complaints Procedure. Sanctions. In the event that a member of Parliament is found to be in violation of the Code of Conduct, the following sanctions are available to the Handling Committee to deploy. An instruction, including a measure that obliges a member of Parliament to remedy a violation of the Code of Conduct, a reprimand, including a public letter from the President addressed to a member of Parliament in which the act that led to a violation is rejected, and the suspension, including the exclusion of a member of Parliament for a maximum period of 1 month from participating in plenary meetings except for voting in committee meetings or in other activities held by or behalf of the Parliament of St. Maarten. Thank you for listening.
Thank you to the members of the Youth Parliament for their presentation. To which member of the Ad Hoc Committee for Integrity can I give the floor for any questions, comments, or feedback? MP Duncan, you have the floor.
Thank you, Madam Chair Lady. And through you, I'd like to thank the members of the Youth Parliament for all the work that they have done, and of course, yourself. I think this is a very important step for our Parliament. Especially when, as the members of the Youth Parliament said, we are the examples for not only them, but those who are to come behind them. And there are some of us that take this very seriously. I would like to know, through you, Madam Chair, how challenging it was to come to this final draft, let's say, in all of the research that was done, and also thinking about how we are culturally as a people and everything that happens. I just wanted to know just some experiences from the members of the Youth Parliament and how challenging or not the drafting of this code was. Thank you.
Thank you, MP Duncan. Which member of Youth Parliament would like to take that question? Mr. Richardson, you have the floor.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Oh, we would like time for us to formulate our answers properly, please.
Shall I go through then all the questions first, and then you can take them down, and then we'll take a brief adjournment. To who else? Who's next? MP Westcott Williams? You have the floor.
Thank you once again, Madam Chair Lady, or Madam Chair Lady for this committee now, but Thanks and welcome to the Youth Parliament, and thanks for the presentation. We received your presentation in advance, so that was a good thing because we could have looked at it as you then made your presentation this morning. And so I want to thank you. I want to thank you for, and the chair lady of this committee, for taking this matter up. As said during the introduction by the chair, the committee's chair, the matter of a code of conduct has been on Parliament's table for many years. The Integrity Committee was created to come to a code of conduct. Many were the documents that were collected in order for Parliament to deliberate on establishing a code of conduct. And again, as the chair lady presented, it didn't come to a final draft, and that is why your work in bringing it to this final draft at least is very much appreciated. So, Madam Chair Lady, I just want to commend yourself along with the Youth Parliament for picking the matter up and at least presenting Parliament with a draft. And having been in this committee for some time, I know of the many hurdles that I, as committee and member of Parliament, face with coming to a code of conduct for Parliament. So I'm glad that we have a document in front of us now that it's either we can agree or we can't agree. And what can we agree with or what can we not agree with? But that is yet to come. So, Madam Chair Lady, I don't have any questions. The presentation is quite clear, and the topics are topics that have been debated by Parliament before in the context of coming to a code of conduct for Parliament, something that is very customary and but evoked a lot of discussion here in Parliament. Madam Chair Lady, the reference to the two points I want to raise in that context, the reference to the Integrity Chamber. So it was never done because the Central Committee at the time decided, or the committee at the time decided not to go to the Integrity Chamber, but let's bring it back to Central Committee, and then you decided to pick it up from this angle, and so we have it in front of us this morning. The reason why I stress that point, because I think we need to hear from the institutions who we are proposing, for example, to be part of the handling committee to start with. And an item that I am very interested in terms of the implementation of this code of conduct is the matter of sanctions. It's a matter of sanctions and the basis for these sanctions. Madam Chair Lady, our system is premised, especially our parliamentary system, is premised on the freedom and the independence of the member of Parliament, whoever he or she may be at whichever time. So, Madam Chair Lady, I think that matter there is something that we need to look at, and as I said before, get maybe from the proposed entities to be part of the handling committee, get some input from them. I totally subscribe to a sort of self-control within Parliament, that we are able to control our handlings. And in order to control our handlings and to, when necessary, call out each other on our handlings, there needs to be some document. It can't be that today I call out a colleague on something and the next day it's another colleague, so this is the framework based on which we can do that. However, even in doing so, and this much of what is in this code of conduct is taken from different countries, many of them larger than us, many of them having had this process ongoing, and I'm sure started at a point before where they are today. So they started at a point and you had an evolution, you had a development, etc. So that needs to be taken into account as well. We have noticed in other areas, for example, our rules of order, that where we have At the time, it was done primarily based on time pressure, but where we have taken over things, for example, from the rules of order of the second chamber, but they could never be made applicable to us just because there's such a difference in our legislature and, for example, the second chamber. So, Madam Chair, Lady, I look at that matter of the proposal of sanctioning. I think it is where we need to get at, so that, as I mentioned, that kind of, when I say self, I mean for all of us, control. But on the other hand, I would really like to see how that could possibly pan out. It would go good until someone challenges it. So we need to make sure that, that's locked down. Other than that, again, Madam Chair, Lady, I think it's an important step that has been made, and I look forward to a further debate, a further political debate, which is what will take place in the central and public meeting. I look forward to that debate. Thank you, Madam Chair, Lady.
Thank you, MP Westcott, for your comments. And indeed, enforcement and sanctions was the toughest article to kind of frame. And of course, it is for this committee then to reach out to the institutions that were mentioned. But this is the best. These young members of Youth Parliament are quite ruthless. So this is actually a very tame article that ended up coming before this committee today. And indeed, the examples that we took, as mentioned from the CPA, for example, in Grenada, suspension from office for a violation of the code is handled by the House of Representatives. But of course, in tandem with an external body, and in the Netherlands, it is a separate body that is handling that. So I look forward to the discussion then with members of the committee and with the Central Committee regarding enforcement and sanctions towards violators of the code. Next on the speakers list, we have MP Rayon Peterson. MP Peterson, you have the floor.
Thank you, Madam Chair. A good afternoon now to my honorable colleagues, to the members of the Youth Parliament, to those in the Tribune, to the Secretariat, and everybody else tuned in throughout the various media outlets. Madam Chair, through you, I would like to thank the members of the Youth Parliament for bringing us this document. I believe this is a good step forward. I do share the sentiment with MP Westcott in regards to the sanctions. Of course, I think that for that to actually happen, we would need to create the legal basis, and then we would be borderlining touching the Constitution. So we will see how to go about that, but I'm here for it. But other than that, in regards to the code of conduct itself, I read the document. I like it. I like the setup. There are some omissions when it comes to the article numbers, but that can be double checked. But I did have one question for the members of the Youth Parliament, and that was in regards to Article 6, I believe, in which you guys are talking about gifts, benefits, and promises, etc. I would just like to know the opinion of the members of the Youth Parliament when it comes to this, because of course, in St. Martin, that is a very refined term. So I would like to be a little bit specific. What can be, according to you guys, through you, Madam Chair, what can be considered a gift? A specific question that I would have is, for example, if you accept cryptocurrency, for example, Bitcoin or Bitcoin Cash, from people that are maybe say not from St. Martin, can that be seen as a gift? That's an opinion question that I would want, an answer from you guys. And also trips. Let's say a trip on a private jet without having to pay for it. Are those things gifts? Because I do want the term refined as per the Code of Conduct, because I want to know exactly where we stand. So just the opinion of the members of the Youth Parliament on that would be great. And that'll be all from me, Madam Chair. Thank you.
Thank you, MP Peterson, for your questions. Are there MP Pantoflet? You have the floor.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Good afternoon to the Chair, my colleagues in the committee, of course, our honorable YMPs, and those that are sitting in the Tribune, and those that are following by media. Madam Chair, let me first, through you, definitely congratulate the MP for a job well done. I believe they were very articulate and clear in their presentation. I have two questions, and basically related to what two former colleagues mentioned, the issue of gifts. How do you determine, through Madam Chair, whether a gift is intended as, let me use the word, a bribe, or is it just a gift? And why do I say this? And I use myself an example. Years ago, we would receive from, as members of the Island Council, and even recently, well, not recently, members of the Island Council receive gifts from institutions, some of them bouquet, Christmas gifts and so on, because it's the season of giving, and that's what it was used for. And do you see that now as a matter of should you refuse because in your position as a member of parliament, you should not accept gifts, period? When does a gift become something that is unacceptable? And the issue of sanctions, I'm glad my colleague mentioned it because my statement would be, suppose the member of parliament wants to contest the particular sanction. What recourse does he or she have in order to contest the sanctions? Thank you very much, Madam Chair.
Thank you, MP Pantoflet, for your questions and your comments, and thank you to all members of parliament. There's no other comments or questions. I see MP De Weaver a little. Yeah? You want the floor? MP De Weaver, you have the floor.
Thank you, Madam Chair Lady. Good afternoon to everyone here. I am glad that MP Pantoflet before me brought up some things about whether or not it should be across the board that it's not accepted, but I'll give you a little insight into how it is in the corporate world. You're not allowed to receive any gifts as an auditor, as a financial auditor. You're not allowed to receive any gift from clients unless it is a gift that is stationary. So if you see my agenda says Koiman, if I'm working for Koiman and they're giving it to all of their customers, then only those things I'm allowed to receive. Because I was thinking about the $500 amount. I know that it's based on a template from someone, but when you're looking at amounts, it can be equated, like it could be the equivalent of cash. So my question is going to follow up on MP Pantoflet's, whether or not it should be restricted only to those items like stationary items, which is just like a pen or a calendar or a notebook, kind of like how we have a portfolio from Parliament that says Parliament on it. Because in my opinion, when you're doing the people's work, you shouldn't be receiving presents for doing that because you chose to be there representing the people, unless it is an award that they're going to be given to everyone in Parliament, or stationery they're going to be given to everyone in Parliament. So I just wanted to see, after giving you that insight of what it's like in the corporate world, where you could be deemed as being, quote unquote, no longer deemed independent or objective in your duty, whether or not you've considered completely eliminating any gifts regardless of the value and just allowing stationary items. Thank you.
Thank you, MP De Weaver. And I see MP Pantoflet had one more remark to make. MP Pantoflet, you have the floor.
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. In my presentation, I was referring to the same is given to all members, not just one particular member. So all members of Parliament or so on receive this identical gift. Nobody receive anything different to the other. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, MP Pantoflet. I think just, and Youth Parliament will answer when we come back from the break, but if you check Article 6, the exceptions to gifts, we did take into consideration the cultural makeup of St. Maarten. I share MP De Weaver's experience of not being allowed to accept gifts from anybody, unless it was a pen or a notebook or, like a stress ball. So those types of general gifts, is exempted from that. However, if you have specific members of Parliament that have been invited to wherever, a hotel stay on a weekend, a trip to St. Bart's, those types of things, those should be reported then, because it is not all of us going to St. Bart's, it's just one or two of us. Thank you. And with that, are there any other remarks or comments from the floor? To give the Youth Parliament some time, I would adjourn the meeting for 10 minutes. Does that work? Meeting adjourned for 10 minutes. Welcome back, members of the Ad Hoc Committee for Integrity and the St. Maarten Youth Parliament. I will right away then hand over the floor to the Youth Parliament to answer the questions of the members of Parliament. Mr. Richardson, you have the floor.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I yield the floor over to YMP Brianna Silvers.
Through you, Madam Chair, in response to MP Duncan, it was a bit of a challenge, especially with the enforcement and sanctions. As Madam Chair said, we were a little more ruthless in the beginning of working on this code of conduct. We had many discussions as to what will work for our parliamentarians. Another aspect which posed some challenges was the remodeling of the final draft in response to the critiques and ultimate rejection of the former drafts. However, within help from MP Gums, we were able to finalize a draft in which we believe addresses previous concerns. Thank you.
Through you, Madam Chair, in response to MP Pantoflet's questions, a gift is anything that would be given without any conditions or expectations, while it is considered a bribe when conditions are added on. Some conditions may be tacit or not directly stated. In cases such as that, the integrity of the MP is tested. Two, in response to his second question, how would an MP go about contesting or fighting a sanction? That would be a condition to be set by Parliament in-house. I now yield the floor to YMP Lynch.
Through you, Madam Chair, I would like to address MP Peterson's question as to what is considered a gift and is cryptocurrency and Bitcoin considered a gift. As my fellow YMP stated, a gift is something that is objectively given without conditions. But as it pertains to crypto, Bitcoin, trips on private jets, that's when the objectivity and integrity of the parliamentarian is tested, in the sense that the conditions may be tacit, and a trip on a private jet, in a sense, is not something that's like the value is measurable in the sense of money and having like registry, but in the sense that I like the term, the ideology is I scratch your back, you scratch mine. So it's kind of the same, like with the intentions the gift is being given in that sense, it's the same concept. And with crypto is essentially becoming the new money, so in the sense it's the same as giving a parliamentarian money. It's the same exchange of currency. Now I yield the floor to YMP Ramsandani.
Okay, so I would like to address in response to MP De Weaver about should we be restricted only for stationery. Stationery can be seen in two aspects. Either if it's a company's stationery that has like its logo on it, or it can be, for example, a Mont Blanc pen that is valued over like $1,000, for example. I don't know the actual value, but we're just giving a round figure here. So if we were to give a pen, for example, that has more of its additional value that is given on our code of conduct, then it does go towards the gift aspect. But if we're going for like, for example, a Parliament pen or a folder or a notebook, then no, that will not be considered a gift. Yeah, so it does still have value at the end of the day if it's a notebook or it's a very expensive pen. But if we go into the perspective of having more of stationary value, but not that has any value on it, we can go and we can say that it can get away. So it has a pro of not having the aspect of having a bribe. So it kind of hinders the ability to still have a bribe aspect in giving the gift or something. Thank you.
Thank you. I yield the floor back to you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Richardson. Are there any requests for clarification from members of Parliament? I see MP Pantoflet. MP Pantoflet, you have the floor.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Chair. Not really clarification. I just want to thank the YMP for their answers to the questions that I posed. I don't mean this as a deterrent or to discourage any one of you. But always keep in mind whenever you making laws or whatever in this case, come with code of conduct and so on, make sure that these are points that you yourself can live with when in the future you become a member of parliament or probably a minister. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, MP Pantoflet. Indeed, I think, as I mentioned, their ruthlessness earlier, that's a standard they've set for themselves. I just wanted to give one comment on the question from MP Peterson. I think Article 7 kind of covers that, inducements. So point 2 of that article mentions engage in paid lobbying. As we see in the United States as well, now the question is popping up for congressmen who are purchasing crypto, so they have not received it, purchasing cryptocurrency, but also are meant to be the regulators, so to speak, of that exact same area, and are not, promoting it in that regard. So paid lobbying, that's what that means. If you receive some kind of fund for promoting something. So with that, I would like to, if there are no other comments from the floor, I would like to thank again all the members of the Youth Parliament, YMP, Ramchandani, Lynch, Silvers, Richardson, Gomes, Marion, and Flanders for your presence today and for your presentation, your very professional presentation. Thank you again. And with that, I would close this meeting. What? Yeah. I'll adjourn for 2 minutes. Meeting adjourned. Of Parliament, apologies for that little mix-up. We were trying to identify what our next steps moving forward would be. So moving forward, as MP Westcott mentioned, we do have 2 entities that are mentioned in the Code of Conduct with regards to sanctions and enforcement, the Ombudsman of St. Maarten and the Integrity Chamber of St. Maarten, that we as a committee would like to touch base with. So it is then the proposal that we send the draft Code of Conduct to those 2 entities and request their feedback. And then they will provide that feedback to this committee, and then thereafter we will further handle it in the process of Parliament. So again, I would like to thank the members of Youth Parliament, the members of this committee, for your participation and cooperation, your questions and comments, and I wish everyone a pleasant day and weekend further. Meeting closed.